Just give your name, company, and whether or not your views reflect the views of your company. So, Hervé, you can go first.
Hello everyone. My name is Hervé, and I work at Woven Planet with Mike, actually. And yeah, my views are my own only and do not necessarily reflect my company views.
Hi, my name is Marco. I'm from Ascent Robotics, and my views are not even my own.
I am Felix. I am at Mujin, and my views are nothing but my own.
I'm Mike. I also work for Woven. Also, my views are my own, not necessarily Woven's or Toyota's, except when it comes to the weaponization of robots. If they didn't stand for that, for not having that, then I wouldn't be there. So, Toyota, no weapons on robots. All right, so we're gonna get started. This is our third meetup. I was doing something similar to this in Silicon Valley. We had svrobo.org. Please look that up, Silicon Valley Robotics. Same thing, it was like a robotics cluster in the area that brought together a whole bunch of companies, and we had bots and beer meetups. This is similar to that, but in Tokyo. Basically, we're just gonna kind of run down the biggest stories in robotics throughout the world over the past 12 months. And we'd like it to be almost a discussion as well. So we're going to talk about them and our thoughts. We chose our top 3 each. We'd also love to get audience views on this towards the end, and we'll do a Q&A. So basically, I'm just going to roll down the list for anybody who can't see very quickly. So in January of 2022, John Deere revealed a fully autonomous tractor at CES. I don't know if we want to open up the links. That'll probably take a little while. So I'll just read them. Okay. In February, China announced that it was aiming for global leadership in robotics with a new 5-year plan. In March, according to the IFR, International Federation of Robotics, Japan is the world's top industrial robotics manufacturer. Duh. In April, Honda's Ashimo robot retired after 20-year career of wowing public, and Boston Dynamics hit their production of their stretch robot, and it already sold out. So, you know, that is a warehouse fulfillment robot that I think could roll and also throw packages, if I remember correctly. In May of 2022, DeepMind's open source version of Mujoko, available on GitHub. That was pretty big. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. In June, this was a big one. This was one of my biggest ones. A decade after acquiring Kiva Systems, Amazon, oh, sorry, this is a different one, but Amazon unveiled its first AMR, autonomous mobile robot. In July, NASA released the first science images from the James Webb Space Telescope, technically a robot in space. In August, we had a few. So robot sales hit a record high for the 3rd straight quarter. Was this worldwide, I guess? Okay. Xiaomi demos a new Cyber One bipedal robot, bipedal. And then this is my big one. Amazon bought iRobot for $1.7 billion. Not quite 44 billion, but
Although I
1.7
think that's
billion.
still pending the regulatory approval.
It's still pending.
Yeah, I think so.
Sure. So Amazon potentially buying iRobot for 1.7 Bs. September, the Amazon Astro review. It's cute. It's getting more automated, and it's not worth it yet. Sorry, Amazon. In October, again, Amazon ends testing of their Scout delivery robots. Argo AI was shutting down. Robot installations hit an all-time high in 2021. Another big one for me and a passionate thing for me is an open letter pledging not to weaponize robots. A lot of very awesome people signed on to that. And then Elon Musk revealed a humanoid robot at Tesla AI Day 2022. IROS and ROSCON was in Kyoto. I think all of us were there. And the JR Yamanote Sen announced an autonomous train. I think I'm reading that correctly. November, which was last month, Amazon debuted the Sparrow, which is a new bin picking robot arm. Waymo opens autonomous rides to the public in Phoenix. And sadly, Lego discontinued its Mindstorm product line. And for December, it is TBD. So, yeah. So now I would like to just open the floor. Probably let's go down each of us and explain the top three and why, and then we'll have a discussion about the common ones there. So I'm going to let Felix go first because he's at the top of our list.
Ooh, geez. Where do we start?
Sorry.
Where do we start? I think the most interesting one, or the most interesting overarching topic here, is the failures and successes going through this year. They already mentioned this in our previous chat, right? One of my picks was Argo AI shutting down. That's not the only one that shut down in the last years. I feel like recently the winds blow harsher in our ecosystem. The bubble is, it's just not as nice. It's just not as much money in the system. It's just more difficult. And the reason why I picked the Elon Musk story or the humanoid robot presented by Tesla is it feels like that humanoid robot being presented was from a different era. There's this big, impressive piece of hardware, and it's pretending that now look at this. This is ready. We can replace the workers, but everyone I think knows that this is not going to be that easy. So I wonder how long that's going to last, and I really want to see what they'll do with it. But I've got some skepticism.
Great, and we'll just go down the line. If you want to, do you want to talk about your other ones, or we can?
Let's do it later.
Okay. So if anybody has anything else to say about any of those, you want to
Well,
go Harvey next?
Yeah, I can just talk quickly about my topics because they're similar actually. I chose the topic to be a failure story from Amazon, which I think is fairly surprising. They're a very big company, they have a lot of money, and even they couldn't crack the delivery problem. So I think that's quite interesting. And on the other hand, I think we've seen a lot of commercial success on people who focus on a slightly smaller scope, not necessarily scale. And that's why I put the JR story, because getting the Yamanote line to run fully automated is actually a huge engineering project, which carries millions of people every day. So you really want that to be perfect. And they seem to be doing just that. And they just decided to not try to tackle AGI, and that seems to have worked for them. So I'm quite happy to see success stories.
Nice. Marco?
For me, so again, similar to Felix, the shutdown of Argo AI, it kind of felt like end of an era. Like there was a lot of hype about self-driving vehicles. Even Ascent worked on AVs, but yeah, it's a tough business. So that was definitely sad to see. Then a more positive story and a recent story was from Amazon. They debuted their first pick and place order fulfillment system for their warehouses.
Can you actually buy it?
No, they're not selling it, right? But the reason why that's important is because Amazon has the most warehouses in the world, as far as I know, and has hundreds of thousands of people working in those warehouses, and most of them will lose their jobs soon. And the first story was about China and their continuous effort to be leaders in AI and robotics. Obviously, China has some problems right now, but we'll see.
Great. I'll go through mine. So every now and then, I read a lot of robotics news, but every now and then there's a holy crap moment. One of those was Google buying up a bunch of companies years ago. What is it, 10 years now? 2014, something like that. And another one was Amazon buying iRobot. Kiva was relatively big, but Kiva was less well known. So this was definitely a big one. The price tag was big, and it legitimized robotics more than it's already been legitimized. Another one is the open letter to not weaponize robots. And a little bit more about this is that as members of the robotics field, we already sort of have a bad rap that everyone hears robots, autonomous robots, humanoid robots, and they immediately think or say Terminator. And people, this relates to the Tesla robot. You had mentioned that most people know that it's not feasible, but I think most people don't, unfortunately. In the industry, yes, absolutely. But general public sees a Elon bot and thinks automatically Terminator. So yeah, also related to that, Elon Musk revealing his kind of 20 years behind Boston Dynamics robot. Yeah, they should do Rock'em Sock'em robots with Elon's bot and Boston Dynamics. I think that would be good.
So maybe we can actually discuss that story right away.
Let's do it.
Do you want to say something? You were preparing to say something.
No,
No?
not really. It's just every time I hear something about the Tesla bot, I get a little bit triggered. So
Use it. Use it. Elon's
Why?
watching. so-
What's wrong with the Elon's bot?
no, nothing's wrong with the robot itself, actually. I think it's quite impressive. They managed to build a robot in a short time. And I think they have a lot of engineering behind direct drive motors and, well, in general, electric motors. And I think that's going to be very helpful. But I also think that Elon's pledge that this robot would go in the factory and actually do stuff, it actually requires so much more effort than just making the robot walk around the stage, that it's not at all on the same plane of consciousness, basically. Right? You need to understand your own surroundings, you need to be able to manipulate things, you need to be able to. So just walking, I would say, from the flat stage to an actual factory floor is going to be a big challenge. And I'm just not sure that this robot will ever bring any value. So that's my take on it.
Did they ever give any indication? I know that during their presentation, they showed a few different generations, but did they explicitly say that this is their prototype and they're going to improve this and we're going to come out with some breakthrough technology, power storage, manipulation that's going to help it get to that point? Or was it just hype?
I'm actually not aware. I know that they talked a lot about the motors, and I assume that they have good batteries because that's their bread and butter. But yeah, I'm not sure. But Felix, maybe you know more.
I recommend the IEEE Spectrum article about this, which has exactly my view, but I didn't write it. Disclaimer. And the summary is basically, yeah, it was hype and recruiting. It was meant to get people interested in into the company, but no hard claims on anything being done or usable in the even midterm, in my opinion. And I don't think that they can, because like you said, it's worlds apart in difficulty. There's walking, it's an impressive piece of architecture and of engineering. And for 8 months, it's great work. But that's, the first year of your PhD. What's the rest going to be?
So is the issue with software or with hardware?
My view is so right now they are mostly missing software, because I think with the current hardware they could make it work better, they could make it do many more things. But I think ultimately, if you want to have a useful humanoid robot, you need to go beyond our current electric motors, and I'm not sure that just making them smaller is good. One big problem we have seen in robotics in general is you need to execute dynamic motion, which require a lot of instant energy. And any electric motor just gives you constant torque for current. So you just cannot jump, you cannot throw things. I mean, it's quite hard to do. And I think that's why Boston Dynamics has explored a lot of hydraulics for their Atlas, because they can kind of use the pressure to build up power and release it just at the right time, which is very useful. I'm not saying it's impossible to use electric motors. I think there's maybe a breakthrough to be had, but I think the current way we use them is maybe not enough.
I want to bring something up. There's this famous video of the PR2, an iconic robot that maybe many have seen, maybe many not, but Google it, PR2 performing household tasks. That was a teleoperated robot. When was that? At the time of Willow Garage? Over 10 years ago anyway.
Oh, yeah.
And it was doing great. The point is the hardware isn't the problem and hasn't been for decades, in my view. The software is everything, and I'm quoting my CTO here, our CTO, robotics is a software engineer problem. I'm behind that. I agree with that. It's so complex. There's so many problems in there that we need to solve before we can think about the limitations that the hardware gives us.
Would you mind pulling up a video of the PR2 if
So
we have
I
it?
actually can't because I'm blocking YouTube for myself.
Interesting. Okay. Advent. Got it. That's fine. So the PR2, please look it up if you haven't. I believe it was a single arm robot, just like Melanie made eventually with Fetch. Single arm robot.
2 arms.
Was it 2 arms? Okay,
Two
sorry.
arms.
PR2 was 2 arms. Could do household tasks. I think there were some PhDs that made it fold clothes as well, so it can handle cloths, which is still really difficult for us to do. Really good, I guess, navigation, object recognition, all that, and was used in a bunch of labs and a bunch of research projects. And again, this had to be at least 2011, 2010. So yeah, what is the seller that it looks like a human? I know there's a lot of debate. Should robots look like humans to act in a human world? Do they have to? Is that the selling point that they're going for, do you think?
The Tesla people? Yeah, I think if you want to generate PR, bringing out human form factor has a lot more impact. If it's just another arm, who cares? You know, it might be faster, more agile, have some fancy technology in it. No one really cares. And, you know, if you were at IROS, you've seen Mark Rabert's keynote. He says that the comments they get on the Atlas videos are much more interesting than the comments they get on the Spot video. And the Spot comments are themselves more interesting than the Stretch. The Stretch comments are just people from the industry who are like, oh, this robot can unpack boxes. I'm so excited. But the Atlas comments are always, when is this guy gonna come to my house and, you know, kick my door open or something?
I'd imagine people just posting Bible proverbs and saying, you know.
And so I think that, yes, that's what the primacy, the issue I have with the Tesla bot is it was obviously meant for PR, but the claims that came with it were kind of so over the top that, which is it basically?
Let's move on to our next story. The next biggest one, I think we can kind of group some things together and just talk about Amazon and robotics in general. Sparrow, iRobot, and then Scout. So do we also have Astro on here?
We do have Astro.
Okay. You choose one from Amazon.
I think that Astro's fate is very uncertain because Alexa seems to be losing a lot of money, and I assume that Astro is even worse and nobody's buying it. So it's probably a dead project, to be honest. So I'm not, we can just, and I don't even see a use case for it. Like it's like a surveillance robot or just like,
it can look what it patrol your house and bring you items. If someone puts the item in, then it can bring it to you, which
yeah, I mean, Curry, Jibo, you know, all these small white robots with, you know, black accents. It's the same story, right?
I feel like we need someone to pull up pictures of these robots as we speak.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with all of them, I feel like.
Well, Curry, Jibo, and Astro are very similar. So this is Astro. Amazon sort of surprise announced this last year and a half ago, something like that. And what it was I think they started out at least with an application process where you had to put your name in and then you would get chosen or something like that. I don't know if you would have the privilege of giving them money to have this robot or you would automatically get it. But immediately there were privacy concerns because Amazon collects a lot of data, of course, as any shopping conglomerate does. And so they figured putting that on wheels with a voice in your house was a little scary. So there was a lot of pushback, but they still, I'd imagine, got some people to subscribe to it. I had asked about getting one, but I think they said
they
no.
were not sending them to Japan. So
that was the thing. Yes.
And yeah, an interesting case for Astro though is that Amazon has often had this kind of strategy of integrating products. And as Marco mentioned, so Astro was running Alexa, so you could ask Astro just like you ask Alexa. It would patrol the house, and this would be integrated in the same system as what is the Amazon doorbell thing that streams images to the cloud. So you could kind of do house monitoring through AWS. And I believe that's what their business model for them was, to basically, you know, if we integrate this robot in our universe, then it's a very powerful tool. But I'm not sure that people really needed the robot to patrol their house at all time of the days, but
yeah, please.
I was about to take it somewhere else
Go for it.
because I think that's the common thread.
Mhm.
Lots of people don't need a robot to patrol their house, and lots of people don't need a robot to cuddle or to just have as a toy. And one story that kind of connects to these is the acquisition of Fetch last year by Zebra. I see a trend of more focused applications with robots actually having success. You mentioned this earlier, and the broader approaches falling apart or not making it. Anyone want to speak to that?
So you're saying that having a multifunctional robot versus one specialized for a specific industry it's falling away to try and create an all-purpose robot.
More than the hardware, it's the application in my eyes.
Mm.
If you do something really well, you're more likely to succeed.
Right.
It seems very much to me that way. If you
Right.
try to do everything, you'll fail.
Right. I guess a good
Mm.
example of that is again, the Amazon picking challenge, right-hand robotics. They could pick things really well. They could recognize objects really well. They weren't a mobile robot, anything like that, but they could do something really well. They got a lot of press, and I actually don't know what they're doing now, but they got a good amount of praise for that. And I also just want to speak to the idea of, I mean, this comes with Silicon Valley and venture in general. You know, companies building stuff and trying to find a use for it after the fact, rather than, you know, coming at it from, I want to solve this problem, and then questioning, is this actually a problem? That phase sometimes drops out. You know, vetting their ideas against that and then building it. Sometimes these companies just want to do cool things and have the money. I don't know, Mark.
But for home robotics, there's basically no problem to solve. You're solving the problem of a maid, I guess, which is a human. So you have to build a general robot, right?
But not even a maid. Like not even anything to help you with manipulation. It's just rolling around. So I would really love to see the spec documents, how Astra was pitched initially, and what they thought the use case was. And you know, for Jibo, I can kind of see it in that it's a, you know, smart companion, almost like Alexa with a eye that acts like a face. But yeah, I don't know. I'd like to pick their brain to see. Anybody here from Amazon? No? Okay. Want to move on to something else? Okay. The next one, I think a big one, and one that Felix is passionate about. Sorry, Felix or Felix? All right, let's go Felix. I've known him for a while. Let's talk about Argo AI. This was also a big sort of holy crap moment because it was very well funded, backed by Ford and VW, and you know, a big shake to the industry of autonomous vehicles. So go off, King.
I don't know how much I can really say to the details of this because I'm not an AI engineer. I make robots do hard things, but not with AI. I agree it was a shakeup. I agree it was, I don't know to which degree it was surprising, but it was a big deal. And I guess you really have to consider how difficult it is for an AI company like this to work. They're promising the moon and they can take you to 5th floor sometimes only. And AI engineers are expensive. The runway can't be that long at that burn rate. And how much money do you need to make these technologies, which are still new and which are exciting and which are powerful? But how much time can you spend to make them good enough? And what is good enough? The legislation isn't even there. So from that perspective, I don't think it's completely surprising that even a big player failed at making this happen.
Yeah.
Full stop.
Yeah.
Not sure what I can add here. The issue is with the long tail of the distribution of situations that can happen in real life. So most of these vehicles will work well in like 90% of cases, but something happens and they don't know what to do and they completely freak out. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess that kind of allows us to tie into the next story because Felix alluded to the responsibility, the legal responsibility. And we don't really have an algorithm to determine what is ethical or not ethical. What should the car do? The classic trolley problem, whatever. People have been arguing about it for a while. So how can we teach the cars what they should do in an unexpected situation is really hard.
I don't think that's the problem, because right now we have level 2 and kind of level 3 autonomous vehicles, right? And nobody's raising legal issues right now, right? I mean, it's not a big issue. A lot of Teslas are in self-driving mode. They're just driving around and nobody's suing them.
Well, except was it the NHTSA doing a lot of investigations into the software to
but like they're still rolling around, right? So I don't think the legislation is a big issue. And I don't think that trolley problem is a big issue. Car will kill whoever it kills. It will try to avoid. If it can't, it will kill the unfortunate person.
Well, where does that responsibility lie then?
The company who built an AI, I guess.
Right, but that is, I think, disputed by companies building AI. Like, does Tesla claim responsibility for accidents? They will likely fight it.
I don't know,
tooth
but
and nail.
how does it work for airplanes? Like when the airplane falls and it's proven that it's
always
fault.
the responsibility of the pilot.
Really?
Yes. Even the pilot is sole commander on board, and if something fails, they have to correct it, except if the software is not behaving to specification.
Yeah.
So that's the point.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the issue here also is that autonomous planes have been around for a while. I think more than people even realize. Autonomous flight, autonomous driving has not been around for a while. And there is someone out there who's claiming that something is full self-driving, when it very much isn't. And again, like people thinking that, this robot, this okay robot is going to be a Terminator, by saying something is full self-driving, you're setting an expectation, especially for the majority of people who aren't in the industry. So they are going to potentially use it wrong, as you see. But I think they dispute any responsibility for stuff like that. Yeah, it's sticky, obviously, but I'd like to find a better way than just, it happens.
And now, as far as I know, the only manufacturer who guarantees their self-driving software is BMW, I believe, in Germany. They say that if you are on the highway within their operation conditions, they guarantee that the car will either take you to the exit safely or stop safely, whatever happens.
And I just want to mention before we get too far. So I just read, I think it was this morning, that Tokyo approved self-driving vehicles up to a certain level starting from March next year.
Yes,
I think
a few companies got some test permits.
Connected to AVs, like, does anyone know if Amazon killed Scout because of the technical issues or because they just didn't see any revenue potential?
I've heard a rumor it's because it can't do unattended delivery. And that's a design flaw. But that is like third, fourth hand info. I have no insight.
Disclaimer.
Are they still doing the drone deliveries? Or
wasn't that canceled earlier? I'm not sure.
Was
May
it?
have been. Well, a lot of their robot. This is something that we didn't put on the list.
The drone project is still going, but
okay. But a lot of their robotics divisions were axed. So related to Scout, actually. So I was surprised to learn. I think it's Starship or another autonomous delivery was fully teleoperated. I didn't know this. I thought that everything was autonomous. So Scout was autonomous, correct? But Starship, another big player, if people haven't seen, they were doing deliveries in San Francisco Bay Area, delivering food on the streets. There's a video of one of them getting hit by a train. It's funny because it's a robot, not a person. And it's fully teleoperated, but I think that they are still around as far as I know.
As far as I know, yes. And yeah, in their case, the promise is that they teleoperate everything right now,
Mhm.
and they will use the collected data to train the robot.
Yeah.
Which I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not AI expert enough to know if this is gonna work, but
So I found out about this company this morning, and they do autonomous delivery like this, and they claim that they achieved level 4 autonomy in
So is that perfectly autonomous in
in
optimal
certain areas.
situations?
In certain areas,
Okay,
yeah. So-
got it. So not any weather, not any location.
In cities without weather.
Zero population, flat buildings made of cardboard.
Uh, yeah.
So at this point, I think, because this might take a few minutes, I'd like to move on for about 10 to 15 minutes again about sort of the robot weapons thing, close it out on that. And then for the last 15 minutes or so, I'd like to take questions or anything from the audience if anybody has any ideas. And I don't know if there's a way that we could take questions from online participants, but if we can, please type in furiously if you can. So yeah, weapons on robots. So this has come up a few times over the past year. Most recently, there was a San Francisco City Council proposal to allow robots to be equipped, police robots to be equipped with weapons and use them for fatal purposes in certain situations. And it doesn't mean that they would be using guns, but they would be able to be outfitted with explosives to beyond just disarm bombs like they're currently used for, but to potentially take out people, for lack of a better term. So yeah.
So what is, for example, wrong with that? Let's say you have like some, I don't know, hostage situation, and instead of sending a human like team, you send a robot team and they deal with it.
Yeah, ideally, sounds great. But the problem is, especially the SFPD has shown themselves not to have that sort of restraint and limit usage to good guy, bad guy situations. You know, I don't like the term slippery slope, but you know, between bias and sort of use of force getting out of control, this can easily spiral into someone's holding up a liquor store, let's send a robot in, and then there's collateral damage and accidentally kill a bunch of people.
Wasn't there already a story
Yes.
where they used the robot to deliver like an explosive or something, right?
Yeah, that was the first of its kind
Yeah.
documented, I believe, of a robot intentionally killing a human.
they used to take out some sniper guy.
Yeah. The thing is, the bar for absolutely necessary is going to continually be lowered if this happens now. Absolutely. Just like weaponizing robots in war, I believe, is going to lead to the bar to going into war and fighting to be lower and lower. Ideally, absolutely. We fight wars quickly with robots. The losing person says, okay, your robot's won, that's it. That doesn't happen. You know, I think it's just going to lead to more, personal opinion, I think it's going to lead to more and more escalation. But I hope I'm wrong.
I'm not sure where to start, but in that open letter, remind me, this is a letter for roboticists, isn't it? It's for companies or robotics people to not participate in making robot weapons.
For arming robots that may exist now or in the future. So strapping machine gun onto a spotter. Yes.
Right. So
something like
there's
that.
this initiative talking or addressing the makers and the people who can make it happen. And then there is the concerns of everyone who would use these new weapons or tools and the effects it has on society. I have a bit of a cynical view on this, even though personally I find the prospect of making weapons and robot weapons to be the most depressing and soul-stealing thing I can imagine. So I decided not to, but someone will, and someone will be forced to do it. It will just happen. And the easier it is with the technologies that we develop, it is just bound to happen. So the social aspect we have to solve at some point, and we have to be involved in the debate, although it might not be for today's 10 minutes. The mechanical part though is that's pretty much my stance. It will happen at some point. It is good to be wary, and it is good to not push it explicitly, in my opinion, but it's unavoidable.
Actually, there is a high-profile robotics company that well, they're not really a robotics company, but they're called Anduril or something like that, from the guy who made Oculus Palmer Luckey.
Mhm.
He has a military robotics company. He's making autonomous drones and things like that.
There's lots.
Yeah,
They're
so
not high profile visibly, but yeah. There's
yeah,
tons of them.
so I think that open letter was useless and just a PR stunt, and I kind of, yeah, it will not change anything, and it doesn't mean anything.
I disagree, just because showing that force against it and coming out against it, I think will spur laws to be put in place to tamp down on it, discourage people from maybe going into that field to begin with, and hopefully change the tide of that.
But then you will lose the race.
But are other countries immediately going into this war robots? I mean,
Maybe they are.
I mean,
Maybe some of them.
have
Some-
you seen the new Unity big dog they've made? And if you ask them, why did you make it bigger? They say, oh, we cannot really tell. So
no, I've not seen this.
Yeah. So,
But things also like the Geneva Convention and whatnot, granted, not always obeyed, but there are sort of worldwide agreements and laws against torture, against military escalation, that may prove ineffective in certain dictators escalating things, but they're necessary to show that people care and push back against immoral things. And I think they're not ineffective. They might not be perfect, but I don't think they're necessarily ineffective.
I guess I don't see how is like using robots immoral, but it's fine.
I can
Yeah,
say
I-
something about this because I mean, quickly, if you remember the drone program in the US,
Mhm.
and a big part of the issue of usage of drones in Afghanistan was not so much that we use drones, nobody cared, is that the usage of drones was not subject to the same regulations, basically, as using regular soldiers. And so if you killed a few civilians in a drone strike, you could just put that in your little CIA black file and nobody would care. And so I tend to agree with Mike. I tend to agree with Mike in the sense that I think we should push basically for robots to be subject to the same kind of regulations as regular soldiers, because they are not, I mean, so sending a robot in should be the same as sending humans in terms of what you need to report and how you should make such an operation. But I kind of agree with Felix. I don't see how we can prevent people from building weapons. They will do it.
Yeah, and to add to that, I think I agree with both Marco and Mike here, in that this letter is not going to have any effect on makers, and there will be people making weaponized robots. There's no way around it. But as a statement, it's part of the debate that we need to be leading, or that needs to happen. So it's a statement more than a PR stunt, I think.
It may be toothless, but we're biting really hard with our gums, right? That was a really bad analogy. I also wanted to say that in terms of making robots weaponized, a lot of people say always have a human in the loop, and I do agree with that. But I can't pull up the article in my mind exactly, but recently I had read somewhere that having a human in the loop making those decisions, as long as they're behind a screen and somewhere else, it's going to be a lot easier for them to affect harm on others rather than them being there and doing it themselves.
And
So that might not even
but
help.
I
as
can
much.
add, because I also read a lot about this drone program, that a lot of the drone operators, on the other hand, were not considered soldiers, and yet they got PTSD because they saw children being killed on their screen by them pressing the button at the wrong time. And so that's why I think it was so shocking to see that people were manipulating weapons of war completely outside the regular flow of war. And that's what I'd like to avoid basically in the future.
This is becoming too dark. We should switch the topic.
All right. So
Interesting point, though.
anybody ever see that Rick Astley YouTube video? Can you pull it up? Oh, wait. All right. So We have about 20 minutes left, and we're probably gonna end it 5 minutes early. So let's take about 15 minutes for audience Q&A, if you have any. Roy-san. Yeah, and then we'll repeat the question.
Okay, so you use the word robotics. Of course, to me, Robbie the robot jumps up in your head when you think of robot. But what is the definition of a robot? Robotics, because I think it's the marriage of AI and mechanical engineering somehow, right? So drones, pickers, cars, robots. So in that continuum, explaining the level of robotics, is there something that reflects the increasing difficulty of the physical behaviors that robotics is trying to do? How do you like to do with cars? You have that level of autonomy with cars. Is there something that explains robotics about the physical behaviors of trying to replicate and that what you mean by robotics?
Gotcha. Sure. So the question was essentially, how would you define a robot? Because there are many different types of devices that are called robots today, and some that aren't called robots that might fall into a classical definition of the robot. And then also, oh, thank you, Marco. How would we classify the sort of utility and ability of robots, just like we classify levels of autonomy in autonomous vehicles? So I'll let Marco take it first because he has it on screen.
Well, this seems to be the ISO definition of a robot, an integrated mechanism programmable in 2 or more axes, degree of autonomy moving within its environment to perform intended tasks.
2 or more axes, so a linear actuator with a finger on the end to push a button.
Not
It's
yet.
not a robot. Wow.
Not yet.
Yeah. But
That's just a machine.
I think if you scroll down a little bit, Marco, there's something a little bit simpler to understand is that, yeah, the robot should do 3 things, kind of, in my opinion, to be a robot. Is like, yeah, the sensing, so it should perceive something about the environment. It should think, so it should do some processing, and then act. And we tend to think about robot as acting on the physical world, I think, in this talk, and that's what robotics is about. You will sometimes hear that there are robots on the internet. They act only in the digital world. So to me, they're a little bit outside the robotics field, but you will still hear robots, but they still perform this sense, think, and act. And I think that's kind of the importance of robots, is this degree of autonomy. And so as they say, your coffee maker might do some sensing, but it's not thinking at all. It's only executing always the same exact program. So it's not really a robot.
Somebody should make a coffee machine robot. I mean, it's not that hard.
Oh, you mean a coffee machine that's like temperamental? That, oh, today I'm tired, I'm not making you coffee or something. That would be fun.
Isn't there a cooking robot that sort of just reacts to what you want?
There are multiple cooking robots, but I think those are more not necessarily reacting to what you want. You put in what you want and it says, okay, the salad is over here, the chicken's over here, things like that. But I'd like to move on to the next question in how do we classify autonomy or ability in robots? And I don't necessarily know if there's the same sort of scale for how capable a robot is.
I don't think that there is an ISO level, but I said something very precise here, but I might be wrong. That definition is very clear that we just saw, that is agreed upon. For different fields, I don't know that these autonomy levels exist. Finished, prescribed, agreed upon. Because there's many different things that robots can do, right? There's autonomy levels for cars, which I think are more or less accepted from 1 to 5. But for manipulation and say maid household tasks, I still can't believe you said that no one wants a maid at home. I want the robot maid so much. I spent my whole PhD.
No, that's not what I said. At least I think I didn't say that. I want a maid in my house.
Can we go to the tape? Yeah, you said it. So basically, yeah, we don't think there's something that exists like that yet, but we know that there are ISO standards in progress for certain aspects of robots, like safety and things. So that might come with it eventually.
Yeah, so you will get, for example, standards for industrial robots, service robots, mobile robots, and those each have their own specifications and standards. And there is not a single standard for all the robots.
Yeah, just from feeling, if you go from 1 to 5, if you use the same autonomous driving scale from 1 almost not autonomous to 5 completely autonomous, then all the manipulation systems that I know would be somewhere between 1, 2, and some research labs, sometimes 3. That's really by feeling, but that's how underdeveloped I feel our understanding of manipulation and the complex tasks is. And that's why I think there's so much to do with software.
Wouldn't pick and place robots in a Mars be level 4 actually? Because they can operate without supervision in the constrained environment.
In a super constrained environment, yeah. All right, I get it.
Mini level 4.
Cool. All right. Any other questions, comments? Yes, please. So
Well,
well,
there's an easy answer that car manufacturing is already 100% automated actually. So if you go in Toyota, Nissan, Renault, whichever one, they made their factories 100% automated. But I think that's not really the sense of your question, right? You want to know where it's going. And I feel that what we've explored so far is that if you can constrain the environment a lot, people have made a lot of progress. And so my personal feeling is that anything that is very open, where you need to drive around the real world, is going to take a long time to automate. But things that are in behind closed doors, so my opinion is that warehouses and logistics is kind of the next frontier, because you don't have to go outside. The problem is fairly well understood, and there is a lot of money to be made.
Let me just very quickly repeat the question: is what field do we think robotics and autonomy is going to come to full fruition, like a level 5 vehicle? What industry do we think that's going to take off in?
I just wanted to add that 2 main industries with the highest adoption of robotics, as Harvey said, is car manufacturing and also electronics industry, building electronic components.
I agree. I agree with what Harvey said.
I also agree with Hervé.
Yeah, so and just to temper it a little bit, I've also seen a lot of, so it's not exactly logistics, it's food handling industry actually is also growing quite a lot. And I think it's also an interesting development because well, especially in Japan, you see a lot of, I don't know, bento, there's a lot of pre-made food. And this is a very basic human need that I think has also a lot of potential. The problem is the margins are really, really small. So it's hard to bring in robots because the investment is quite big and manipulating food is difficult. But I think there's also a lot of progress, but this is maybe more moonshot, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you were saying about electronics components. So I used to work for a robot maker that handled silicon wafers. And in order to do that and reach the throughput that they need, it's faster and more dangerous than humans can do. They need a certain amount of precision that humans cannot reach. So just like what I said before about the bar being raised, I think that companies will reach a level of output and sales that they get comfortable with, and they have to raise their bar every year, that robots will become essential in especially those industries like electronics manufacturing, where you just can't do it without robots now to reach the same level. Yeah. Anybody else, or do we have any questions from online? Is that possible? Okay, maybe, but sorry.
So if you have questions from online, you can just type it in chat and we will read it.
Okay. Oh, yeah, sorry, Sam.
My question is, seeing the events of this year and everything that's happened, what are we going to be talking about next?
All right, so the question was, given all the craziness of this past year in robotics, what will we be talking about in December of 2023? definitely more Amazon news, right? They had 5 or 6
Yeah.
stories this year. They gotta have at least one next year.
And they're pushing. So I wonder if we're going to have one of the cruise stories actually next year, because they are still working really hard on AI, but they've had a few setbacks this year where, their robots got stuck in the streets of San Francisco. So I'm sure we will talk about autonomous driving again next year. And I hope it will be a bit of a success story, because it's getting a little bit depressing, but I'm not sure.
But does anyone thinks that we will have like some major breakthrough either in robotics hardware or robotics software? I don't know, like SLAM or manipulation or
I
some other
I
part.
think NVIDIA is going to keep, revolutionizing GPUs. I mean, they keep having some big jumps there, but in terms of other stuff, we'd probably have to base what we're thinking on what we saw at IROS and ROSCON. So did you see any papers or talks that might give you the impression that that's going to happen over the next year?
No, so I mean, I was at the ROSCON and I saw a lot of papers about this DARPA Underground Challenge, was it? And I would say it was a mixed success. So most teams managed to do some amount of exploration, but none of them did 100% of everything. So it's true that, when there's a big challenge like this, it's usually a good time to assess what are the capabilities of the people. And having been myself at the humanoids challenge, that time Shaft from Japan came and just blew everything out of the water. It was Shaft 20 points, number 2 at like 5, so they brought something revolutionary to the table. I have a feeling that this year it's not quite as crazy. So,
but very quickly, if you think back to the original DARPA Grand Challenge, the driving, the first time they did that, I believe all the cars failed pretty badly. But then when they went back to it, there were some teams standing and whatnot that did well. So it might just be temporary hiccup.
It might just take time. But that's what I'm saying. Like, if your question is, did I see something this year that makes me really excited and I'm like, oh, this is the future? Not yet. Right now, I've seen new problems and a lot of people are thinking about them very hard. So yeah, I'm hoping that next year somebody will show something cool, but it's hard for me to tell.
Yeah.
I'm stuck thinking about what is a revolutionary piece here. Is there anything that I saw at IROS and ROSCON that's completely going to overturn everything? No. But I don't think that that's what we need or that's what it needs to be really successful. Lots of our technology is assembled. Robotics is an integration discipline. So as long as the pieces work well together, I feel like there can be a company or two who show something really convincing. Maybe fully force controlled, fully torque controlled, something that's very easy to use, a new Panda, for example, or a new interface, or a cool demo from the gantry robot at TRI, who knows? Or something from us, you never know.
Thank you.
So is the main reason that more industries are not automated the cost actually and not the capabilities of robotic systems that we have? So if Mujin robot or solution costs like $2,000 instead of $200,000, right?
That's one part of it, but a big part of what is the cost of robotic solutions, I'm not sure how many are aware, but half the cost is just people and programming and integrating. The most difficult thing about making robots do useful stuff is telling them how to do it. And that teaching what it's now, or that big programming effort, making that become easier, yeah, that's the big challenge to me. And that's what we're working on, yes. I don't think it's the cost of the system as much as the time and effort that people will spend setting it up.
Yeah, I agree. I think we are not quite at the level where robots are a commodity that you can just buy and program on your own in your garage. It's really something for experts, and you need to have experts come and install it and tweak it. And that costs a lot of money. And so I think that if robots got better capabilities, they were more general, maybe then people could just do it themselves. But right now, as Felix said, it's really hard to tell them what to do and how to do it. So you need experts, and it costs a lot of money. So I think those two problems are kind of tied in my mind.
And we're almost out of time. So I think if it's okay, oh, we have one question online. Okay. Is it a good one?
I wouldn't say those are questions, more like comments that some robots are classified as cobots or industrial robots, depending if they're able to work together with humans or not.
Okay.
And the other comment is, well, I'm not sure what it is.
Okay. All right. We're going to wrap it up here. So this was a little depressing. So make sure you go and do something nice for someone today or tomorrow. And yeah, we are going to now spend about 2 or 3 hours in the back behind the bar doing robotics networking. So please come back there and talk to us about hiring. I think all of our companies are hiring and the industry is pretty strong in Japan. So yeah, thank you and see you next time.